To the eyes, you would use fingers. Don't worry. I will.
Even though we fought bare-fisted during our competitions, we had a lot of injuries.
Everyone loves legends. They inspire us. Fighters like Conor McGregor, Mike Tyson, Muhammad Ali, John Jones, and of course, people like Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris. Norris and Lee have cemented their well-deserved place in history without a doubt. However, what people love more than legends is determining pecking order. So, between Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris, who was the superior fighter? If these two were to meet in the ring, who would win? The Fighting Airman. Chuck Norris needs no introduction. From the countless memes to his contributions to the world of martial arts, everyone has at least heard of the legend. Chuck Norris is both a seasoned airman and a seasoned fighter. Norris enlisted in the Air Force as an air policeman back in 1958. He was then stationed in South Korea. While in Asia, Norris picked up his first martial art. He began to train in Tong Soo Do. After leaving the service, he applied to become a policeman in California, but also opened up a martial arts studio. Norris would continue to develop his fighting capabilities and picked up other styles. Not only did he continue to train in Tong Soo Do, but he began to train and compete in kickboxing and karate. Between 1964 and 1974, Norris would, at first, lose his initial fights. After improving, however, he began to rake in wins until he had a chance at the world title. In 1967, Norris was announced as the All-American Karate Champion after winning a tournament. 1968 would mark his final defeat when he lost in a fight against Louis Delgado. He would go on to avenge himself on November 24th when he beat Delgado. Norris would officially retire from fighting after defending his belt for 6 years. After his fighting career, Norris would begin acting as well as developing his own martial arts systems. The two systems that Norris founded were Chun Kuk Do and American Tong Soo Do, the founder of MMA. Just like Chuck Norris, Bruce Lee is another who needs no introduction. The countless action movies and his status as a founding father of modern MMA, Lee has immortalized himself in the world of martial arts. Unlike Norris, Lee was introduced to martial arts at a very young age. Lee was the son of a Cantonese opera star. He would appear in various films, even sometimes as a lead actor. Things changed in 1956, however, when Lee was transferred to St. Francis Xavier College from a Catholic school due to his poor academic performance and conduct. His poor conduct would continue as Lee began getting into various street fights. This is what led to his parents deciding Lee needed martial arts. There was a lot of difficulty for the young Lee, however, as Ip Man refused to train Lee. Lee was of mixed ancestry, with a Chinese father and a mixed mother. Because of his ethnicity, Lee was initially barred from training in Wing Chun. William Chung, a friend of Bruce Lee, spoke on Lee's behalf, however, and Lee was ultimately allowed to train. Wing Chun would go on to be one of the largest influences on Lee. Alongside training Wing Chun, Lee would be trained as a boxer between 1956 and 1958. During his boxing career, Lee would actually win some school tournaments. Muhammad Ali would also influence Lee, mostly Ali's footwork, which Lee would go on to implement in his own style. This all culminated in the formation of Jeet Kune Do, Lee's personal and self-developed style. Chuk Kuk Do versus Jeet Kune Do. Now that we've covered both fighters, let's go over their styles. Both Lee and Norris implemented a wide variety and array of different fighting styles into Chuk Kuk Do and Jeet Kune Do. Chuk Kuk Do is based not only on Tong Soo Do, but other arts such as Taekwondo, Karate, BJJ, and Judo. Jeet Kune Do, meanwhile, draws influence from Wing Chun, Taekwondo, boxing, and Jiu-Jitsu. In the modern age, Chuk Kuk Do lives on through the UFAF, United Fighting Arts Federation. The UFAF hosts various Chuk Kuk Do competitions throughout the year. Jeet Kune Do, meanwhile, is less of an actual fighting system and more of a philosophy. Lee prided himself on having a style based on no style. Instead of holding himself to a singular fighting style, he focused on incorporating what worked and discarding what didn't. This philosophy would be the basis for Jeet Kune Do. Some students of Lee, however, would change this interpretation and develop an actual fighting system, separating mythology from truth. Before we go in depth on a fight between Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee, there's something important to cover: the mythology surrounding both Norris and Lee. Although Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee are undisputed legends, there is an insane amount of mythology surrounding the two. Although Chuck Norris was a legitimate competitive fighter, there is less verified documentation surrounding Lee's fights. Lee did have some fights, and there is a recording of him fighting, but there's far less validity to Lee's claims than Norris's. Chuck Norris holds a black belt in various fighting styles and was a 6-time world champion in karate. Bruce Lee, meanwhile, is said to have fought in thousands of tournaments. However, we only have official records on a single fight that Lee fought. Lee did win the fight, however. Both Norris and Lee were heavily involved in the acting scene and even worked together on various occasions. The mythology surrounding them comes, at least in part, from what the duo did on screen: Bruce Lee versus Chuck Norris. A fight between Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee is less about what both men are capable of and more about the experience between the two, and in that regard, Norris absolutely has Lee beat. Chuck Norris simply has far more experience than Bruce Lee, and this would ultimately give him the edge in an actual bout between the two. Norris has military experience and was competent enough of a fighter to not only win a world championship, but defend that championship for several years. Lee, meanwhile, was more active as an actor than he was as a fighter. Lee was able to win a school boxing championship, and in the footage of his fight, was able to hold off several of his students through his speed and strength. Mythical Bruce Lee versus Chuck Norris. Would Bruce Lee be able to beat Chuck? Bruce Lee's feats of strength are as numerous as they are insane. A few of the highlights include Lee being able to strike within hundredths of a second, catching grains of rice out of the air with chopsticks, piercing his fingers through steel cans of soda, and exploding 100-pound, 45-kilogram bags with a mere sidekick. Chuck Norris, meanwhile, doesn't have nearly the same legend surrounding him as Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee, accounting for all of the rumors surrounding him, would easily beat Chuck Norris. Lee simply outshines Norris in virtually all ways. It's said that Lee would bike for 10 miles at a single go and continue training. He would have the edge in endurance. Lee is also said to explode 100-pound bags and destroy cans made of solid steel with 2 fingers. He would certainly have the strength advantage over Norris. The issue with pitting Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris against each other is their approach to the arts and their tested application against opponents, and sometimes this means accounting for their resume of tournament wins. But on the other hand, Lee's approach of discarding anything that is not useful across various arts and truly mixing the most applicable to his training has us choosing Bruce Lee forever.
You'll be just walking, like a girl, real, shoulder up and everything.